Hi guys. Welcome to today's podcast of BinaryWorks. Here we talk about technology trends and AI adoptions for higher education. And we are joined by today Adam Skiles. He is the CA of Huntington University, and he has worked with multiple higher education and K to 12 education institutions. He is here to share his perspective about how AI is useful in higher education. Welcome, Adam. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's get started, Adam. I saw your profile and everything, and we could see that you have been with Huntington University as a director of IT services for last 12 to 13 years, and you also worked with K to 12 education. So, what actually drew you to the higher education technology? Since we are with K to 12 background, so can you talk about that? Is that helped you in achieving success in university?
Yes, it has. I think education is a very different sector from many others, but K 12 as well as higher education are very similar in many ways. And what we're
Hmm.
attempting to do in meeting students where they are, allowing them to grow, find their calling,
Hmm.
and pursue that wholeheartedly. So whether that's K 12 or higher ed, that mission is still very much central. And what drew me to higher education was really seeing students as they go beyond high school and looking at going into the workforce or finding ways to serve in our communities in different ways, to explore many different avenues and ventures that they pursue.
Okay, interesting. So, you joined as a CIO with Huntington. Can you give an understanding like what kind of challenges do you see with higher ed with the current uh, uh, trends and with current so many things are happening around us. So can you give an perspective of what challenges you generally face?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest challenges we have out there is that our environment is very much changing. The workforce is changing,
Mm-hmm.
and so preparing our students for that change in the workforce as they move forward. As we've talked, even some of the programs we are doing now, we weren't doing 10 years ago. So, and I think that pace is changing. So many of the careers or areas for our students to serve, that they will serve eventually in their careers or in their communities, are probably not even there yet. And so we're preparing them for spaces to serve, that they're going to have to learn and adapt. And so many of the skills they're learning are not just really specific skills to specific um, occupations or community service opportunities, but to really learn how to adapt and be agile as they move forward beyond their work here at Huntington University. And that's the same in education, every educational institution.
Interesting. And with AI being in gaining momentum after ChatGPT took off, like what kind of opportunities you see with higher education from a CIO perspective? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think it's a big opportunity for higher education.
Mm-hmm.
As we have done some research internally, as well as we've done work with consultants to do some external research, really on the workforce and those spaces, as well as what we're doing internally. We work closely with Angie Carroll, who is an AI consultant, trainer, and keynote speaker, to do some local research in our area. And what we're finding is many organizations, especially small to medium sized businesses, are really in the same space that we are with respect to AI and how we're adapting to it and how we're attempting to bring it forward, not only in our organization, but with our employees and with our customers, our students. So that is very different from where it's been in the past. That kind of the workplace has usually been either a little ahead of where education is, or education has sometimes been a little bit ahead. The fact that we're at the same space
Mhm.
in both our knowledge and how we're utilizing and how we're moving forward with it is very different. So it allows for some different partnerships than we're used to in the past. Oftentimes, we look to organizations providing our students internships to give them experiences. But oftentimes now,
Mhm.
those organizations, those institutions, those businesses are looking to us to help provide them a resource in students that possibly providing them skill sets that they don't existingly have or know how to utilize some of those new AI resources and tools that are available to them, and looking to us to be that resource to help them move forward
Okay.
in those ways. And so that is a very different dynamic than where it's been in the past.
And how's the adoption with your workforce? Like, are they okay with it? Or they see this is kind of some kind of an threat? What's their take on this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say it's mixed. And it's not really either pro AI or anti AI, as we
Mhm.
did. So looking at focus groups and just our own employees within our faculty. Faculty really see it one. Some are kind of in an active integrator stage where they're using generative AI already. They're building use cases. They're doing lesson planning and things like that with it. We have some that are what we would refer to as curious experimenters, where they're working alone with maybe some consumer tools, but uncertain about where they're permitted to use it and not permitted to use. Then we have those who are kind of formation first skeptics,
Mhm.
where they're deeply concerned about critical thinking, about writing development. They're not opposed to AI, but they're unwilling to kind of compromise on some of their core outcomes that they're looking for their students to come away with. And then we have some principled refusers, as we would call them, where they view generative AI as really not as net negative for student learning and formation. So.
So it is a mix, in your opinion.
Yeah, and I would say even I would say our employees are even kind of broader across that, where they're still kind of in maybe some of those four stages, but more aligned to more the operational side of things rather than the educational side of things. So they're, how is it impacting their work? Oftentimes, those individuals are working with more sensitive data, and
Mhm.
therefore they're a little bit more trepidatious about the risk um, uh, that comes along with the use of some of these tools.
And do you think student experience can be improved significantly with the AI adoption, or do you think that is going to be not the case? What's your opinion?
I think it's mixed. Many institutions are going to have to decide where do we use it and where do we not use it. Where does it make sense and where does it not? And I think that's for us. There are some really key principles that we talked about,
Hmm.
um, kind of through our as we looked at various things. So some of the foundational principles we came up with for ourselves was that it must align with kind of our mission of our institution.
Okay.
And it must serve human formation. And that's kind of the biggest thing for us.
Okay.
So where we've decided to decide on, okay, does this AI use truly allow us to form the whole person as
Hmm.
part of this use? Or does it detract from that? And does it take away? Where does human agency and human intervention need to be paramount and not lost with the use of various tools? So we're evaluating those use cases very intently to making sure that, again, those core principles and those core values are kept throughout
Hmm.
those implementations.
And you obviously connect with various CIOs of higher educations. What kind of concerns or kind of opportunities that always keep coming back? Like, hey, this is something the other institutions are trying it out, which we should also try, or something they should be aware, anything like that.
Yeah, I think. where we see a lot of use currently right now is on the operational side of things.
Operation.
Many of the existing tools we already have are having AI infused in them. So evaluating the where we already have tools that are building those additional tools and features into them already. Does it make sense? Does it not? Does it help? Does it detract from what we're doing?
Mhm.
So that's where I think a lot have started, and some have looked at some very specific use cases, not just operationally, but okay, from the academic side, where can it help on the curricular or assessment side of things?
Mhm.
And thinking about too, where can we help our faculty and our employees support our students in ways where right now they're bogged down with either administrative work or other things that really aren't enhancing the student experience or enhancing student outcomes, so
Mhm.
that then our faculty and our employees can spend more time on those activities maybe they don't currently have time for, to then again enhance that student experience, enhancing their outcomes, enhancing their kind of human flourishing throughout their time with when they're with us.
Interesting. And speaking about other area that again our team was always researching on this area is student enrollment.
Yes.
Is there anything that you are seeing uh, any strong need for some kind of tool, or because the way people students researching about finding the institution has changed considerably? They're starting with ChatGPT and everything. So how you guys are looking at it? Are you guys working something on that?
Yeah, we're implementing, well, the core of any AI use as you move forward is the data systems you have.
Mm-hmm.
And many higher education institutions, especially small to medium sized institutions, have really seen over probably, I would say, the last 3 or 4 years, really a big focus on looking at their data systems and modernizing those data systems. So we
Okay.
actually have a data system modernization team that we've developed over the last few years, and we've been really systematically over the years implementing new modern data systems, making sure that our data is clean, accurate, that we have good data governance processes in place, so that the core of any use of any AI tool is the data that sits behind it. If the data is bad, the results you're
Yeah.
going to get are going to kind of coincide with that. So we've really taken a big focus, and I think a lot of institutions are understanding that, hey, I can't just use this tool with bad data or unclean data or data that is not governed well. I've got to have good systems, good governance practices in place that really going to allow the use of those systems to their fullest potential, and not end up causing issues or other risks in place because our systems and governance practices are
Mm-hmm.
not appropriately aligned.
Interesting. And see, with all these data model setup, cleanup, and all these kind of AI implementations for operations and everything, there is always going to be a high cost involved in these kind of implementations. So, how institutions are budgeting it out? Is that something that you guys are investing for the future, or is there something for improving efficiency? How do you budget all these things? It's a significant cost. It's going to impact.
You're right. It is essentially a cost spend. Fortunately, for the state of Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
we have the Lilly Endowment, who
Mm-hmm.
has graced the state of Indiana with a huge influx of financial resources to support our growth in AI development and preparing our faculty, our staff, and our students for really where AI is ubiquitous, both not only professionally but also personally as well. There's a Lilly Endowment has infused $500 million over the next 2 to 3 years in the state of Indiana to help higher education institutions prepare their faculty and prepare their students. And that's a focus we're doing, is really kind of focusing those dollars. So we're looking to receive probably in the neighborhood of about $5 million over the next 3 years if everything
Mm-hmm.
goes well. We've submitted a grant for that. We've received some initial planning grant funding that has helped us really develop our AI strategy, develop some of those core guidelines and principles that we want to focus our AI use cases around, um, and kind of assess where our students are, where our employees are, where our
Mm-hmm.
region and our communities are, and where we can best kind of connect. Because along the way, I think what's going to be key as well is not just institutions doing this on their own, but through partnerships, either partner institutions or even partners in the workplace. There's
Mhm.
going to be partners in organizations that we can come alongside and work together to develop tools that not only help our students learn and help us adapt and do better, but also help those organizations as they move forward in their own industries.
Interesting. And what would be, in your opinion, that the future for technology, like students, because students graduating out, they might need a lot different. At least the market is looking for a different kind of skill set. How you guys are preparing for that? There is a big change, like the entry level jobs are getting replaced with AI. So how is something that students needs to prepare for the new world, and how you guys are planning for that?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest concerns with AI that often comes into play, both from industry and others, is critical thinking skills,
Mm-hmm.
writing skills, research, and those types of things, and assessing large amounts of data and other things like that. So there's been this gap between competency um, and kind of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So with that gap comes some issues. So people are using tools
Mm-hmm.
without necessarily fully understanding the underlying pieces that brought out the outcome they come with. So for us, helping students understand how to critically assess their own thinking, assess their own um, understanding as they go through the process, not say, hey, I took what this tool gave me and I generated this output, but to really know and understand. Because where it comes into play is when organizations or people you end up working with, and the same thing with institutions, when you start really assessing those outputs and um, become more critical and really asking those deep questions, there has to be some key understanding that's already there, inherent. And there's this expectation of understanding. Hey, you've just delivered these outputs to me, you've delivered these results. Tell me about these results. Why are you seeing this way? And you have to have that understanding of what went into it, what the core data is. And so, what we're doing as we're working with students is really not just assessing them on their outputs, but looking to really revamp our assessment tools to help students understand their critical thinking, what goes
Okay.
into it, and then how to present that in a way and be able to speak to that when those things are questioned. Just because with anything else, as we look at what outputs we come out with, there has to be explainability, there has to be transparency. Um, Oftentimes, there's safety and other security concerns that will come out of those pieces. Students are going to be able to speak to those things, and those things aren't necessarily tool specific, but more general, just um, kind of soft skills that they're going to need to know and use. And that will also, I think, help them adapt as these tools change and adapt throughout the process. And so those are critical learning outcomes that we have for our students to help them prepare for the workforce and for their personal lives as well.
Mm-hmm. I understand. And like other aspect, again, when we were also researching, is there is always students are looking for more of online education than coming to universities and doing it. So do you guys see that, and that's something that you guys are looking for? The need is changing, preparing universities for that kind of need.
Yes, we are as well. I think many institutions, as we've seen, just online education, it's kind of ebbed and flowed over the years, I would say to some degree, but I certainly with um, AI tools and many of the online schools using those to help get different programs and different things to market more quickly and to be
Mm-hmm.
able to provide tools to students more quickly, provide resources. Even from that standpoint, many institutions we've looked at it, we're not looking at necessarily doing an AI program or anything like.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at these things need to be infused in existing things. So how can we further enhance the existing programs, make them more readily accessible to students? Students are wanting to move at a different pace as well.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we're going to have to look at how we deliver our programs in ways that are more readily accessible, have greater tool sets, and allow students to learn at a pace even faster than traditionally. I mean, we've looked at programs over the years where traditional higher education programs has gone from 4 years to 3 years. I think we're going to see that accelerate over the years with many of these tools and how students want to gain this knowledge and be able to move more quickly. I think also too, credentialing is really changed. More competency based education has been really prevalent over the years, but I think credentialing has even changed pretty significantly over the years. I think evaluating, what things look like from a credential standpoint. Our students wanting to not just wait for a 4 year degree to say, "Hey, I'm now credentialed." There's going to have to be credentialing throughout the process, and how students are showing hey, I've gained this knowledge, I've gained this skill set, and being able to present that to employers and organizations in which they're wanting to serve more readily and more quickly.
That's good. And on the student retention part, is there anything, yeah, you guys using some tools to predict, hey, this student is, there's a chance of fallout or something, something you guys using any tools to
Yes,
for student
we
retention?
are implementing a retention suite
Okay.
as part of our major data system implementations.
Okay.
And with that, looking to do regular pulse surveys of our students, can engaging their level of engagement, how they're feeling, um, how they feel they're doing, and any sort of emotional or stressors that are coming to play, and then how can we bring various support mechanisms and support resources to our students. Also, helping students to be more readily receiving those support resources at the time they need it. When are the various times? When can we pull the various data pieces from both our learning management system as well as our other engagement tools that we have to assess where students are and bring those tools and resources, both personal resources as well as maybe digital resources
Okay.
that we have available to students more quickly so that we're not too far along in tooth when the student's needing the resource before they receive it or know that even a resource is available to them.
And you're saying you have a lot of systems you're trying to use AI in every place. With your existing system, or is that you're adding AI as a layer to the existing system, or you're completely rewriting the existing system, building new stuff?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're necessarily rewriting. There are some pieces, some use cases where we say, okay, there's an AI use case, and it's kind of that build or buy
Yeah.
mentality. And I think in every situation we're evaluating where that comes into play. Where does it make sense to build our own tool where maybe an existing tool doesn't quite provide us or the expense is not quite there? But then there's also the option to buy some existing, especially as we mentioned earlier, a lot of existing tools we already have are building those AI pieces built into it. Our analytics platform is building some AI pieces built into it where we can do some natural language reporting and analysis of data that we already have, and help us also clean the data through the process, but we're able to do it well. But being able to run those analysis, those dashboards, those reporting mechanisms, those
Mhm.
notification mechanisms that need to be in place, um, that really will enhance our team's ability to serve our students at the time they need to be served for the various resources that they need.
So it depends on the use case you're thinking about it.
Right. It's not going to be a one size fits all. Hey, we're going
Yeah.
to build whatnot, but we are looking at adding some staffing to help with that, adding
Mhm.
some AI personnel that really are helping evaluate that. Hey, what are the options to build? Not every one of our employees is going to know how would I build this. So giving them tools and resources and personnel that they can go to will say, hey, what is the right option for me? This is what I'm needing to do in my classroom. Because the one thing where higher education is different from the private sector
Mhm.
is we're not just addressing the needs of one given sector. Um, we're looking at health, we're looking at digital media, we're looking at business, we're looking at many various industries, agriculture, those kind of things. And we're having to look criminal justice. Where are ways that those AI tools and where they're being used in many of those sectors is not necessarily the same. And there are many tools to be evaluated and many use cases to say, okay, where do we want to build, where do we want to buy? And so giving them resources and personnel who can help them with that assessment and possibly building out those tools is something we know we're going to need to invest in over the next several years.
Interesting. And I know many institutions are using an outdated ERP that is still not in cloud, or not having enough abilities to connect with the AI capabilities or something. So how such kind of organization, in your opinion, can scale, like with this new kind of AI tools available? If yeah,
Yeah, as I mentioned before, your core data systems is really where you have to start.
start.
If your core data systems are not where they need to be, if your data is not where it needs to be, your data governance practices are not where they need to be,
Hmm.
implementing an AI tool in that environment is going to be less productive
Hmm.
and probably more costly. And also inherently will introduce some additional risks, especially around transparency, around data privacy, around security, that is going to be really critical to institutions. And if they don't do it well, it could definitely um, make it more difficult for them to, one, keep students, but also keep employees and also even hurt the reputation of their institutions if not used properly. So those are things that you really kind of have to think about. So that's what we've done at Huntington is we've really looked at kind of our data system layer and say we need to make sure that this is strong and robust. No different than from that side as we did when I first came on board here. The first thing I looked at was our technology infrastructure, the hardware infrastructure, the data center infrastructure, the data systems we're using. Is getting those core infrastructure pieces in place really creates a launching off point where we can then start innovating more readily and more easily and more quickly. And so that's kind of really what we're doing here is we've implemented some new CRMs and we're in the process of implementing a new ERP that's really creating that core foundation for us to really create a launching off point to do many of these more innovative practices and use these tools more readily and easily and also, and importantly, securely and reliably.
Okay. Understand. And how do you handle the risk management? Because you're part of committee of Huntington with risk management committee. How do you work on this? Like, what kind of data governance you have? You might be using some from buy. You might be using some vendors, third party platform. How do you assess and how do you take care of the risk management?
Yeah, especially vendor risk management is a
Yeah.
big thing as it comes to AI because there's so many various tools. So we're looking at possibly, especially a smaller institution, we're looking at third parties to help us with that. So third parties are helping us do the actual vendor risk management to
Mhm.
allow us to do it more quickly and readily because we're assessing more and more tools. And as tools also change over time, reassessing and re-evaluating those vendors as part of our vendor risk management program is becoming more time intensive. And so looking at ways that we can use AI to help with those vendor risk assessments, using tools. So right now Huntington is part of Independent Colleges of Indiana, and as
Mhm.
part of that, we're assessing globally, hey, higher education as a whole, we use a lot of the same vendors. Rather than each of us individually doing vendor risk assessments and all of those vendors ourselves and kind of assessing where those risks are, assessing where those tools are, assessing where our data is, how about or how that data is being used by those various vendors? Let's do this collaboratively instead of each of us doing this vendor risk on the same vendor 20 different times. Let's do that once and maybe share that information amongst each other so that we can move forward and know where vendors sit and where the risks are, where they're not. We may decide differently on what risks we're okay with and what risks we're
Mhm.
not okay with as an institution, but at least that process to do those assessments, to evaluate where those vendors are, is going to be critical as we move forward. and it's going to just increase as the number of AI vendors and the number of tools out there are
Yeah.
continuing to just expand exponentially.
Interesting. And how about your data governance? Like, do you take that very seriously? Like, who should have an access to the data within your team members? Because with AI hallucination, and it sometimes it gives data to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, as part of kind of our guiding principles with AI, one of our key principles is explainability and transparency. And that means that use of AI should be disclosed transparently to our stakeholders, and outputs, recommendations, and decisions informed by AI should be understandable and documented. But in addition to that, there's also an accountability side to it, and with that comes that there has to be an AI system owner will take responsibility. So there has to be someone who's going to, hey, this is a system, and I'm taking responsibility for the results and support the value that's being delivered. Because that's the thing is this tool not only has to um, it not only has to present results, but we have to assess that those results are valuable and they're continuing to be valuable over time, and that users are responsible to ensure that the assisted work reflects actual understanding and intent. Those are some of the key principles. Another one is fairness and bias detection. So we have to be able to assess for bias before implementation. Okay.
Okay.
And also bias and fairness risks that are transparently documented, and they're regularly reviewed. So those are going to be part of some of our governance practices when we implement AI to be sure that that we're doing things well. Validity
Mhm.
and reliability is also key. System owners have to ensure that they regularly review for accuracy and relevance and the information being used, and with both the information being used and the results that are delivered. So those are kind of the key tenets for us and those guiding principles for many of these systems as we move forward and governing the data that these systems are now outputting.
Interesting. So, what would be your advice if somebody was thinking about AI to be implemented in their institutions? Like, what would be the your recommendation? Start something here, start these things to be careful. What would be your advice?
Yeah, I think the first thing they have to kind of set aside is really what is your strategy overall as an organization with AI? And that can't be a purely IT exercise. It has to
Hmm.
be an institutional exercise with buy-in. I work very closely with Dr. Becky Benjamin, who is a professor of psychology here, who's going to be leading kind of our one of our key groups that we're creating as we move forward with effectiveness. So we're going to be creating um, a group called, let me find it here real quick, where we're kind of Office of Academic Effectiveness that really unifies several different pieces. So it's unifying faith integration vocation, our Center for
Okay.
Teaching and Learning, and academic technology. All of those pieces are coming together in this Office of Academic Effectiveness that are really going to bring together these pieces that sometimes have been disparate. And I think that's what we found is an AI strategy isn't just IT strategy. It sits
Yeah.
really between the organizational strategy and the IT strategy together. And so I think bringing the right groups together, bringing a good cross-functional group across the institution to have these conversations and really decide on what are your strategic AI principles? What are your guiding principles and guidelines and guardrails as institutions say, hey, these are non-negotiables. This is core to who we are and how we are going to move forward. And we need to make sure that any implementation of AI as we move forward falls within these parameters. Um,
Mhm.
Again, like we talked about with Huntington University, is our key principles are that it must align with our Christ-centered mission. It has to
Mhm.
serve human formation. Humans
Okay.
must remain accountable for all meaningful decisions, and truthfulness and integrity determine all of our AI use. And so, I think once you have those things in place, you're creating a framework that allows you to make decisions more quickly as you move forward. Oftentimes, many organizations will start with, hey, I've got this great use of AI. Great. But
Yeah.
you need to do this groundwork first as an organization to really create what we call kind of that innovation engine. Really, you're kind of creating the structure of the vehicle that you're wanting to drive forward in, and you need to have those bare bones, that structure in place to allow that innovation engine to take hold and kind of propel you forward.
So, do you think the top-down approach will be the best practice for AI, in your opinion?
I don't know that it's necessarily top down because again, especially higher education institutions where we have there's expertise in our healthcare experts and expertise in our agriculture experts and others that we're going to need them to feed up. It's not going to
Okay.
be just necessarily a top down. So I
Mhm.
think, especially as we decide on use case and other things like that, there has to be these innovation engines throughout the organization that are bringing ideas and use cases to bear. But I think as an organization, we have to decide parameters. Okay, where does that fall in? Hey, this is really outside of our mission, or this really doesn't align well. Because as you mentioned before,
Mhm.
there's a lot of resources involved here, both personnel and financial and time, that are really going to be critical. And we have to decide where is it going to make sense for us to focus our efforts and our resources to make the largest impact for our students as we move forward. And that's where kind of the organizational piece, but the innovation has to come from the bottom up, I think.
I don't know.
There might be some innovation coming from the outside that can come from top down, but we really need our people to help drive and become their own kind of innovation engine as part of this. And we have, as we talked earlier, where's everyone at? And people are at
Mhm.
different levels, and we're
Yeah.
going to need those people, those innovators in our organization to help speak into how we're moving forward and what use cases make the most sense.
Does workforce needs to be trained for these kind of new things?
Oh, huge. Well, human capacity and change management is going to be probably the number one pillar for us as we
Mm.
move forward is how do we bring our people forward? How do we bring our students forward along with that? Because we can't bring students forward where our people aren't. And helping them learn how to collaborate in that space of, you know, faculty are used to being the experts in their field. Well, okay, now they're using tools that maybe they're not a full expert in yet. And there may be some students who are going to bring a little bit more, some students who are maybe a little hesitant as well, where maybe, just like we talked about where employees might be kind of a little bit trepidatious about where these tools really use. We have seen even in assessing our students and where they're at, that some of them are like not really convinced that AI is going to benefit them. And so, how do we bring those individuals along the process? So, definitely, development of our people is going to be the hallmark and kind of the core pillar as we move forward, both employee and student. And then managing that change. The pace of change is going to be ever increasing. And how do we manage that change throughout the process and help those individuals manage that change within their own classrooms? So, definitely that's a big piece. We're creating kind of an AI fellows program
Uh,
as part of one of our implementations, and that fellows program is going to bring along so many staff, so many faculty over a number of years to kind of bring everybody to a level where we can say, hey, this is where we can bring everybody to. And we're going to be using some tools. As we see, many institutions are putting courses out there for free now.
yeah.
Many of the AI companies are bringing tools and courses out that are now free of charge. There's some paid for curriculum as well that's now coming to bear into the market. And we're evaluating all those pieces to kind of, one, give our students and our employees some credentialing as they move forward that show that, hey, this is where you are, but also help them grow and develop over the next several years.
Interesting. And again, if your workforce, you said they are in different levels. If they see there are some tools out there in the market, and do you recommend them to subscribe to it and use it, or it has to be more on the organizational structure that is to be reviewed because there are so many risk factors involved? What's your take? How
Yeah,
do you approach that?
where we're starting to help our our employees with that and our students with that is we're implementing a product called BoodleBox. And
Okay.
BoodleBox is kind of an AI aggregator to some
Beautiful.
degree. It has access to many of the different tools. Because as many of us know, there's not a single AI tool that is perfect for every use case.
That's true.
There are some AI tools that are better at some use cases than others. And so we are looking to provide BoodleBox, which is AI grader, which includes ChatGPT, Claude, and many of the other AI tools, Gemini, all into kind of one platform.
Mhm.
And they can opt to help them use, or the tool itself will help them determine which AI tool might be the best tool for the specific use case that they're trying to use it for. The other thing we like about AI BoodleBox as a tool for our institution is that it is kind of helps educate them through the process. And it has many tools that are already pre-designed for higher education already. It's already compliant with many of the security governance and compliance pieces that we want to have in place. And so it really provides a playground and a tool that they can really start just running with. Um, so as other AI tools and our people bring to us, we are evaluating those.
Mhm.
But we've really come with a responsible AI use policy that really governs, that really is tool agnostic, saying, hey, these are the guidelines and structures if you are using AI. These are the data pieces that you can use with it and can't use with it. And there'll be certain tools where we say, hey, this tool is approved to maybe use some advanced data with, or some um, more restrictive data elements and data points with than other tools. And so we've kind of given them that guardrail to know that,
Okay.
hey, this is what you can do and can't do, without really saying, hey, you can use this tool, you can't use this tool.
Okay.
We still want them to bring them to us and to allow us to evaluate what they are, but we're not being as restrictive kind of out of the gate. We're giving them a little bit of latitude, but with some very strict guidelines on, hey,
Guidelines.
this is where you need to stay in. These are the lanes you need to stay in.
Interesting. And how do you keep up with lot many changes every day? There are so many news coming around. AI, hey, we launched this. This will replace this. So, how do you keep up with those kind of change and new launches?
Yeah, that's a great question, because obviously, if you wanted to, you could spend every minute, every waking second just feeding yourself full of AI. And I think we're a part of many groups and consortiums and kind of looking at what are we doing together? What can we bring together to discuss? And such as we're a part of HES, which is the Higher Education System and Software Consortium. We're also part of Independent Colleges of Indiana, also ICI, the National Independent Colleges, or CIC, the Council of Independent Colleges. We're looking at those groups to really help us, and EDUCAUSE and others, to really
Mhm.
bring together a lot of that thought leadership and help kind of focus. EDUCAUSE has been doing some great work recently with respect to talking about and bringing resources around what does assessment need to look like? How do we develop new assessments that are really in this AI space going to help our students flourish, and those kinds of things? So we're really looking at those peers and those collaborators, but
Okay.
also too, I think also talking to industry and our industry partners. That's going to be key and critical. And with this Lilly grant, there's some collaborative efforts that we're doing to help kind of garner that knowledge and create some knowledge bases around AI, and training our people around AI. And so that's kind of how I think we're going to bring it, at least to the institution as a whole. Myself personally,
Hmm.
um, looking at my peers, looking at those organizations such as EDUCAUSE and others, to bring some of that thought leadership, especially when it pertains to education. But then also looking at non-educational resources as well. Looking at what Microsoft is putting out, looking at what Anthropic and the other tools are putting out, what OpenAI is doing, and just keeping abreast of what they're bringing to the conversation, so that we're not caught off guard when those things tend to, as we oftentimes see in technology, something may start somewhere with a particular vendor or a particular thought leader, and then it ends up kind of coming across the the space as a whole as, hey, this is now a core tenet and operator. And so we're wanting to kind of evaluate those as well.
Interesting. So, from your perspective, what is some kind of a big pain points everybody like higher education still faces that maybe not now in future there will be some AI tools out there?
Well, I think with any of these initiatives, all the way that comes a pain point, always a big conversation is sustainability, right?
Okay.
Especially as you look at receiving grant funding for various projects or initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
how do we then keep that sustainable over a period of time? Um,
Okay.
and I think the other pain point will be cognitive overload, is something that we've seen already
Yeah.
from both our students and our faculty, and even we've heard it from industry as well. There's just this overload of, where we used to say, hey, we've got this new tool out here and it's great for this great use case.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got these tools out there that have a multitude of use cases where they can be used, and really kind of almost that overload of like, I don't even know where to start. There's so much data and information coming in relating to how I can utilize these tools. Where do I go? So I think helping people deal with that cognitive overload, and deal with the stress and the emotional impact that that has on them as they move forward is going to be a key thing that we come with. Is not just showing them the tool, but showing them how to handle that cognitive and those overload and that feeling of stress and pressure. In that, hey, I not only can use this tool, but I'm competent in what it's producing and I can speak to it. Those are, I think, going to be the big challenges for not only education, but for industry as they move forward in these spaces.
Understand. So, my final question would be, what do you think as a prediction, like the next 5 years higher education would be? I know it's very difficult with the rate of innovation.
Well, and
What
five
would be
years
your
is
prediction?
probably a bit long,
So
right?
3 years. Let's take 3 years, 2 to 3
Yeah,
years.
I mean, if we've seen what the pace has changed just in the
Yeah.
last 2 years alone, it's been just exponential. Um, I really, I really see over the next probably, I would say 3 to 5 years, where there's been a lot of partnership between industry and higher education. I really see that increasing exponentially over the next
Okay.
few years, because I really see um, the fact that many of us are in this same space with these tools and how we use it. Where is it best used? How can it? And so I see this collaboration of this back and forth of higher education helping industry, but industry helping higher education, really not only maybe improve operationally how we work, but improving how we educate our students, providing opportunities for our students. I see that expanding exponentially. So I think
Okay.
um, that that line in between education and industry, I think, is going to continue to blur, and how embedded education is going to need to be in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
where industries, some industries have done this, where they've really created like, some of their own universities inside their own organizations. I see that increasing exponentially, especially in medium to small sized businesses. And where can higher education play a role in that and be that partner? So I see that being huge over the next several years, especially in the space when it comes to AI and how it's being used.
All right. It's interesting. I think that happens. I'm also seeing that that's going to happen. But any final word for our audience? Anything who are thinking on AI? Anything final word?
No, I think, just like anything else, being sure that whatever you do with AI, it's staying true and core to your mission as an organization, and that you've set those kind of guiding principles in place out of the gate so that it doesn't compromise, again, who you are as an organization, what your mission is, and really how we're forming humans, right? Human formation is key. That's really the business higher education is in. It's a
Mhm.
really critical age and time for our students. And so I think as we move forward, it's key that we don't lose that as part of any ways we implement AI as we move forward.
All right. Thanks, Adam. I think we're close to our podcast. Thanks for your time. I hope we made a lot of insights about higher education to our audience, and would love to connect with you in another 6 months. I know by that time, lot many changes would have happened.
That is
We're
true.
happy to chat with you.
Thanks, Athos. It's been great talking with you today. I appreciate the time and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
Mhm. Bye.